9 years ago, Margot Robbie and Chris Pine teamed up for this underrated sci-fi thriller. Z for Zachariah pictures the end of mankind. This lesser-known film stars Margot Robbie, Chris Pine and Chiwetel Ejiofor as the last three survivors of an apocalyptic event. Robbie plays a faithful Christian woman, whose survival might have been pure luck, while Pine's character is a ragged coal miner, who's cunning and hard to trust. Ejiofor takes the titular role of John Loomis, aka Zachariah, as the last man. Z for Zachariah parallels Adam and Eve's story in the Garden of Eden. While Adam and Eve mark the start of mankind, Loomis and are how it ends. The title of Z for Zachariah plays on the idea that if A is for Adam, the first man, Z would be for Zachariah, the last man on Earth. The film is loosely based on Robert C. O'Brien's science fiction novel of the same name, though the plot of the film diverts significantly from the source material. Notably, the film inserts another character, Caleb, portrayed by Chris Pine, into the story of the last pair of man and woman. The sci-fi thriller, Z for Zachariah, plays around the idea of Eden at the world's end. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, where a nuclear weapon has wiped out nearly everyone on Earth, it's assumed that no one else survived but a young Christian woman and her dog. Margot Robbie stars as Anne Burden, who seems to live a peaceful life and not be troubled by the fact that she's the sole survivor. However, this quickly changes when she discovers another human alive. John Loomis, Chiwetel Ejiofor, an atheist and a scientist, happens to stumble upon the road next to the house and lives in. In desperate need of air, Loomis takes off his anti-radiation suit but accidentally walks into a radiation-infected waterfall, and saves his life and brings him home, and after struggling, on the verge of death for days, Loomis recovers. Their companionship as the last man and woman on Earth soon becomes something more. Yet, it's hard to ignore the underlying violence, secrecy, and conflict. Their seemingly peaceful life takes another turn when the Star Trek actor's coal miner, Caleb, shows up, similarly needing help, and takes Caleb in, which stirs Loomis' jealousy. Caleb is good-looking and also a religious man like Anne. The chemistry between them seems more spontaneous than the one Anne has with Loomis. Caleb is able to convince and to take down the church her father built and use the woods to build a power station. Z for Zachariah explores jealousy and the dark side of humanity when Caleb and Loomis each talk about the worst things they endured in order to survive, and is caught between two men, who both want her, and it's becoming obvious who she'll choose. However, Z for Zachariah is not a story just about a love triangle or survival. It essentially comes down to self-destruction, jealousy, and cruelty. As possibly the last people on Earth, the three of them turn against each other instead of forming a community. The ending takes a sudden turn when Loomis comes back to Anne alone, informing her that Caleb is gone. The sci-fi film is famous for its ambiguous ending that keeps viewers thinking about what happened for days. If it wasn't for the haunting ending, the film wouldn't have achieved half of its impact. It is the ambiguous and somewhat sinister twist of events that has fans hooked, and it all comes down to one scene. Caleb slips from a cliff, and Loomis is holding the other end of the rope. The film hints that something sinister will happen after they exchange a final look with one another. Prior to this moment, Loomis immediately tightened the rope that prevented Caleb from falling down the waterfall when he slipped. Caleb climbs up, but he slips again in the radiation-proof suit. Loomis takes the rope in his hands. He tries to save Caleb again, but as the two look at each other, a smirk appears on Caleb's face. At the same time, Loomis' eyes change. That's the last time viewers see the two of them together. In the next scene, Loomis informs Anne that Caleb is gone. Heartbroken, and attempts to find Caleb. The ambiguous ending leaves many viewers uncertain of what truly happened. Though it seems that Z for Zachariah heavily hints at Loomis being the murderer, many argue that Loomis doesn't have what it takes to be a killer. Loomis couldn't kill the boy who was begging for him to take his life. Instead, Loomis left the boy there to die. Even though the architect is cautious and on edge because of the horror he has lived through, Loomis proves to be a decent person. It's true that he's jealous of Caleb getting the girl of his dreams, but when Caleb slips, Loomis' first instinct is to save the guy. On the other hand, Loomis has a dark side. He attacked and when he was drunk. He also left a little boy to die. Speaking about the unspeakable things one does, Loomis is capable of causing harm to another human being. With his jealousy brewing all this time, the Res.